wanting to experience more, and knowing that we're not meant to do this alone.
Hello and welcome to Chronicles of the High-Powered Female CEO. This is episode 7, and I'm so excited to bring on this guest, Claudia. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you, Melissa. Lovely to be here.
So I'm so excited about this because Claudia and I have just met, minutes before this, introduced by a mutual friend, and so I'm just here excited to get to know about your heart, Claudia. But before we dive into to the depths here, like I like to do, share with us who people usually know you as.
So people usually know me as Holymama, as in Holy Mama. But what a lot of people don't know is the struggles I had to get to be known, to have this success, and to have this 10 years now, nearly. Next year will be our 10-year anniversary. So this is what I'm going to talk about here.
Wow. So, and give us just a little snapshot into what does the Holymama do? What kinds of things are you doing in the world?
So we support women and children, and this started by just from a personal need when I created the first retreat for mothers and kids back in 2013 when I was pregnant with my youngest child, my daughter. And I just felt there are so many yoga retreats around the world, but there's nothing where you can bring your child. So I created it out of a personal need, and it just grew and grew organically. And now we actually have trained leaders in over 20 countries. There are women doing this with their own brand. So this is not a franchise, because I didn't want to use that, let's call it a patriarchal model. I wanted to empower women to take my blueprint and run with it and create their own success story, which is what has happened.
That is amazing. And right now you're tuning in from where again?
Right now I'm in the south of Spain. So I am based in Spain, Ibiza, and the south of Spain. And we do retreats in Asia, in places like Bali and Goa. Also, we've done retreats in Morocco, in Africa. And I'm actually looking to come to South America. I've just got back from Peru. And I'm very drawn to do some retreats there as well. So we have retreats, but we also, of course, have online trainings and experiences.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay. So now that we have a little bit of a scope, I mean, gosh, that's so neat and so needed. Actually, part of my intention in creating these conversations towards the end of the year, second week of October, I'm going to be hosting a retreat, and we haven't nailed down the details yet of location and stuff, but we're going to be hosting a retreat, and we're inviting the whole family. It's for the women who have created this success, a space, right, where we can show up, where we don't have the walls or the judgments, and everyone's just in celebration of the richness and wealth and impact that we've created on the planet. But families are invited. So yes, I love what you're saying and what you've created. It's so needed. So let's dive in now to, kind of, I guess, a little peek behind the curtain to some of those struggles that you mentioned that you've had to go through being a mother and creating this success.
So I think what a lot of female entrepreneurs find, and especially mothers, is that we look after everybody else first. So what happened when I was building the business is I would make sure everyone was happy, all the food was cooked, and then it was a bit like working was a hobby or something that I should feel grateful that I could do it, when actually very quickly I was becoming the main breadwinner of the family. And it was a bit like I had to sort of scuttle off into the attic to do my work. So I think that's quite typical. And I think we saw it also in the lockdown, where everyone is at home and the women were, especially if there was a family involved, they were doing all the chores, the household chores, and trying to squeeze in work. So I think that is a big challenge. And what happened to me, when the more I became successful, or the more the business became successful, and the more I got empowered personally, the more my marriage started to crumble. And the more that I think my now ex-husband, felt like something, like afraid that I was gonna become too successful. You know, we all have our limiting beliefs. I mean, it can be many things. If you're with a partner, whether it's a man or a woman, but I think this happens especially when women get into their power, the man they're with or the partner they're with has to really support them, be able to stand in the shadow, because sometimes you just really are in the supporting role, and allow their partner to really stand in the light and be, you know, I'm using these metaphors in a way just symbolically, but allow them to keep rising without being afraid. It was never my intention to leave him behind. I wanted him to come along, but he wasn't ready to do that. He had another idea, he had another path. And I think this often happens when women become successful. It's like one of the sacrifices, you could say, that gets made.
It really, I see this all the time. And you know, at one point I was doing kind of like a crowd polling of this particular phrase: "Are you afraid of outgrowing your husband?" And I got a massive reply to that, on so many levels, whether it be, you know, this financial piece of outgrowing the income, becoming the major breadwinner, right? Or outgrowing them, like spiritually, like the depth of person that you're becoming. And so, so tell us a little more about that.
So one of the, I mean, there were many, usually when a marriage or a relationship breaks down, it doesn't happen overnight. You kind of can see it, you know, it builds up, and it took years. But there were definitely key moments. And I think one of them was when I decided to create the certification for the retreat leaders. Now, this was at a time when the business was growing, and I had this idea, and his response was, "Oh, but why would you want to do that? Then everybody's going to copy you, and you're going to lose clients, and that's not going to work because things are going well. But, you know, that's like a really bad idea." And I needed to invest money. And I needed to invest money so that I could work together with, I actually chose a business coach to work with, so that I would have support in creating a very robust certification that wasn't just me sitting down, you know, when the kids are in bed and jotting it down. And that investment actually amounted to his yearly salary. I mean, I was on a very low yearly salary. It was practically voluntary work, but still. So that was really, really triggering for him.
Mm-hmm.
And what, in retrospect, I realized, and thank God I did that, because it got me through the pandemic when live events just evaporated. What it was I had the mindset of an entrepreneur, or I have the mindset of an entrepreneur who sees opportunity, who wants to grow, who sees that the business has to expand in different ways. And creating a certification was just a logical next step after having done it for so many years, having the experience, having the know-how, and having this massive mission and vision that I wanted to birth, where you go from being a business owner to creating a legacy, so that, because you realize at some point you have to be replaceable. You can't be everywhere. So to create that legacy, I had to share everything I knew. And that's what I do. It's not about withholding anything or holding back anything. Now, if you don't have that entrepreneurial mindset and you're in that, what we often call, you know, limiting belief or scarcity lack, that is going to jar. So, you know, it's a bit like, okay, if you're the one in the marriage that has the pants on because you're making the decisions that are actually for the greater good of all, and your partner doesn't see that, something's got to give.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And this is so big. I mean, I feel like we can, I have this sense that there are women who are going to watch this, who are watching this now, who need to hear this. That what you're sharing, your story is so important because the piece that I wonder is, and it makes me emotional, like how many women choose to crawl back into their cage and don't let their magic out, and don't let out all the power and good that they could do with that money, because the pressures of society and the way things have always been, and not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to be alone forever, like all those things are so real. But then to crawl back in, and I actually, I don't look at her with judgment. I have so much compassion for her, but I want women to feel like, we don't live in a day and age where we have to continue to make those choices, right? Like we live in a day and age where possibilities are unlimited. And you said something before we started this conversation about women stepping into money. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I think that's so tied to what we're talking about.
I can actually wrap together the two things because I think they're intrinsically linked. And what we said before was that we both, I think, believe this, that when women come into wealth, something very exciting happens for the planet, because women are known, and we've got some examples like J.K. Rowling, Jeff Bezos' ex-wives, multi-billionaires who went, I don't need all this money, but I know what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to redistribute it. I'm going to put it where it's needed in very smart ways. So this often, you see this time and time again, when women get very rich, they do something really useful with their money. This is not building rockets. For that could be useful for some people, but I'm really, look at the needs on the planet. It's about what is actually, how can we feed the children? How can we save the environment? I think it's something like 70% of people who work in the environment are female. Things like Amazon Watch, the head of these big global environmental organizations. So what happens when we silence this whispering, this urge, this dream? And it often does start as a whisper. It starts as a whisper because we are so used to quieting it down, to shutting it down, to shutting up, because a woman's voice isn't as, belittled. We've been, this is lifetimes, hundreds, thousands of years of this. This is something that we have. We've enabled this, so we can't stand there and blame the men for it. We can blame the system, but men have suffered too under this system. But what happens is we give our power away when we stay in silence. We give our power away when we shut down our dreams. We give our power away when we make do because we don't want to rock the boat or move out of the comfort zone. Or, sometimes it's this idea of, oh, but I had to put the family first. Oh, but I had to put the children first. This for me was a massive shift. And this is actually the chapter I wrote in this book about domestic abuse. And domestic abuse has many faces, as we know. It's coercive control, it's psychological, it's emotional. And a lot of women actually, without realizing, are in relationships that are emotionally and psychologically abusive. When you're not witnessed and seen for who you really are, and who you really are might not be so apparent even to you yet, but this is this kind of higher version of you, the you that you were born to become, the you that may have been there as a teenager, before we start worrying about what everyone else thinks about us, that sort of dreamy state that we have, the sort of between childhood and teenager years. So that sometimes it takes you being in a very quiet space. And we spoke about retreats before that. I love retreats because I believe retreats create that safe environment. And when we feel safe, all sorts of amazing things start to happen. Most of the time, our environment, is I mean, in the world of the working world, it can feel the opposite. So we need that environment to start tapping into those visions. And I think the more women, because women haven't had an opportunity to do this. I know men need to do it too, but I know that women, we have these ideas and visions that need to be nurtured. We need to nurture them in ourselves, and we need to allow others to nurture us so that they can grow like it's like flowers. It's like it's just an incredible ecosystem of expression when women start to tap into that. So, and then they become rich. I mean, there is
Exactly. It's amazing, that correlation. Follow what your heart says, and then you can become rich.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's so simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's actually simple. It's a bit like when people say you just need to relax. Yes, a lot of things get solved. A lot of our physical ailments get solved when we relax. And a lot of these things in life are actually pretty straightforward. And, I'm at the age now, which 5 decades, which means that I have this clarity of life experience that allows me to really lean in now in a way that I think when you're in your 20s and 30s, there are women, who are already that clear, but I just look at my own life and see, gosh, it just gets easier, really.
I love hearing that. I think for someone listening, and I'll let you share to whatever level you feel to, but for someone listening who finds himself in this situation where maybe they do feel kind of held back by the marriage, and maybe the husband is deliberately doing that, or maybe the husband or the partner is more like just can't keep up, not by any fault of their own. But I know so many women in the conversations that I have wonder, like, how will I know? How will I know? Like, okay, this is good. I can continue to grow my roots in here. Or how will I know when it's time to release this coupling with this partner? And so I'm curious, like, what you would say to that, or maybe how did you know?
Yes, I think a lot of women stay, if they have children involved, a lot of women stay in relationships for the children, and I did for years. And I didn't finish this thought off before, but when I had that pivotal moment to realize that I had to leave for the children, because if you really tune into what's best for everyone, for the highest good of everyone, sometimes it does mean leaving. And separation isn't easy for anyone, even for those who are, can do it in a conscious way. And in my case, it was definitely a mess, and it still is 4 years afterwards. But I know if I look back 10 years, it would still have been the best thing to do. And it still now is the best thing that I could have done. Because what happens when you stay in a situation that's, I mean, you could even go as far as calling it toxic, but a situation that is it's more than holding you back. It's making you shut parts of yourself down. What happens is we get sick. We become, we can't fulfill this incredible potential we have and to create change in the world, which, it is already 2 minutes to midnight. If we're not, if there's not plenty, I mean, the world, I always once had this sentence that I used: the world needs a lot of leaders right now, a lot of compassionate, integrative, feminine, women who have that balance of masculine and feminine. And I would also say reciprocal leadership, like who are able to see the bigger picture, give back. So if, sometimes that might not be so clear when you are in this stuck relationship, but leadership sometimes also means just leading your life the way that is true to you. So the practical tip I would say is take yourself away for a weekend or just be in your own energy, because this is the thing, when we're very entangled with someone, we can, it's really good to have conversations and to talk to someone who, if you're thinking of that you need time alone. But at the end of the day, if especially with I mean, it doesn't just have to be abusive, but if someone is very charismatic or very good with words, they might override your opinion, and they might persuade you that suddenly you'll take on their opinion and their energy. And this is very typical. So to feel your own truth, you have to be alone. And that means also sleeping alone, waking up as yourself. I don't know if you're familiar with human design, but that theory says you should actually sleep alone, because if you don't, the neutrinos that are moving through everything, this is quantum physics, are going to affect you, the person who you're close to. So my practical tip is be by yourself and sleep by yourself a few nights and just see how you feel. See if you can get some, go on a retreat, see if you can get some insights, and then go back with those, speak to your partner and see if you can find a solution.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thanks for being willing to go there, because as I said, someone watching in that place, I know that questioning, and I've been there myself, and that questioning, is this right? What is the best next step? And you want to make the best choice for all involved. And it feels very heavy, but I love what you're saying, because I know that innately when we drop into the truth that's within us, we already know all the answers.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I think we often try and solve things with our heads, when actually it's our bodies that know best. And some of us are quite, it's instinctive or intuitive. For some of us, we have to go through an emotional process. And for some, we actually have to speak to a different group of people and hear the sound of our own voice, and how we need to sort of get feedback. So that, we all need to just honor that truth in ourselves, but not sit alone and stew it in our heads, because the head usually, there's too many thoughts, there's too many, but what about them, or well, how do I solve this? And you could just end up having sleepless nights. It's just really good to let your body do its job. We're animals at the end of the day, and our bodies know so much.
This has been just absolutely a treasure trove of inspiration, because to hear from somebody like you, who has created the kind of empire that you have created in your business, with something that is so, I mean, everybody loves travel. Everybody would love to go on a retreat, and to create that and have that be, that's your brand, that is your voice and your heart out in the world. I just am like, gosh, so inspirational and helpful. And I have two more questions for you, mostly because I just want to get to know more of you and what makes you tick. My first question is, what is next for you? Like, given what you've created, and that you're already on 20 continents or 20 countries, whatever you said there, you have so much. What gets your heart really excited about what you're creating in the next 10 years?
So, well, two main things. The first, well, three. So business-wise, the two business, and the third is just my kids. Just exciting that they're going to be teenagers, slowly becoming teenagers, and all that, and just the closeness of the relationship to them through, after all we've been through. I actually believe that we are actually becoming closer and closer now. So that's been quite a journey. Business-wise, so as I mentioned, we're going to have our 10-year anniversary next year, and I've been sort of keeping this sort of non-profit arm of Holymama. I've always had some kind of sponsorship or subsidies and donations, but I really want to properly launch a foundation where we have proper investment and we can play bigger. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is I want to write. I just want to create time to write. I've got a children's book I want to write. I've got a business book, and I've got a novel, and I've got writing is the thing that lights me up. So It's
Oh,
not easy to write, but I have got these dictation apps now that work really well with artificial intelligence. So sometimes when you have that's another good tip. If you have writer's block, just go for a walk and start dictating some ideas, and you'll see that the page fills very quickly, and then you have to just go back and edit.
love that. I love that. Okay, my other and final question, Claudia, is what would you say is has been the most fulfilling experience or one of the most fulfilling experiences in your life?
Wow, in my life. Is this work related or personal?
Whatever, or maybe one from both, whatever you feel you want
Okay.
to
Well,
share.
I think personally, being a mum, I think birth changes you. So I think I came to motherhood later. I came to motherhood in my 40s. I had my 3 kids in my 40s. And I think coming to this experience later, it was even more of a wow, this has happened. Wow, I was just so grateful. And to see, it's like I woke up the morning after my oldest was born, he's going to be 14 this summer.
Oh,
And I just looked into my eyes and I saw his eyes, and it was like everything was just suddenly got new meaning. So I think that was probably that was a pivotal moment. I think for a lot of women as well, when they become mothers, suddenly their career changes. Suddenly they realize they need to do another job and all that. So I think that's pivotal. And in professionally, I don't know. Every single time I run a retreat, and I see the transformation over the course of the week. I see mothers, especially when I work with the mothers, coming exhausted, tired, overwhelmed, stressed, sometimes angry, sometimes like literally a breaking point. And then to see them leave, just completely having gone through that portal of transformation, that's just rewarding every time.
oh, I love that. Claudia, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
with us
you.
today.
Thank you so
Um,
much, Melissa.
I feel like because you mentioned a book that you
Mhm.
authored, and so I definitely will get the link from you, and we'll put that in the comments here or in the top of the post. And then, where can people find more information about your retreats?
So our website is just holymama.info. That's the website. It's all one word. So yeah, so there's
And
all
we'll
the
make sure to post that as
okay.
well so that those who've listened can go and check it all out. It sounds amazing. And any last words you'd like to share?
Um, no, I would just, say to all the women here, you aren't alone with your experiences of feeling like the system hasn't caught up yet. Women are doing things now that they weren't able to do 10, 20 years ago, and we're continuing to create this new world for our daughters, and for our daughters and sons, even those who are aunties, they're still, for the ones who come after us. So just keep trusting in the fact that even if it's not doesn't look so easy right now, things are changing, and keep being the change.
I love that so much. That is exactly the reason why I have decided to do this interview series, Chronicles of the High Power Female CEO, to interview women like you so that we can feel, for one, this sense of look at how many women are creating and pioneering this path, and that it is absolutely possible. It doesn't have to look the way that it looked before, but also to create a community of women that can just celebrate each other, because I think so often we feel so the higher the success, the more the targets on your back, and it doesn't have to feel that way. And so if you've watched today, share some love with Claudia, and make sure you go and subscribe to all the interviews. Make sure you get on my email list so you don't miss an interview. And just thank you again so much, Claudia.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone.